On January 16, 1547, a 16-year-old boy named Ivan Vasilievich crowned himself the first ever Tsar of Russia. This was not just a coronation, it marked the start of a new era. Before this, Russia was divided into smaller regions, each governed by a prince or boyar, relying heavily on the church. The new Tsar aimed to unify these regions into a single empire. Ivan IV, later known as the Ivan Terrible, started one of the bloodiest decades in Russian history. How did a ruler with great intentions end up becoming the terror of his own empire? Why did Ivan create the most terrifying force? How did it operate, and what were its consequences for the people of Russia? And perhaps most importantly, why did no one stop him? In 1565, Ivan divided Russia into two parts. I'll call him Ivan if you don't mind. The Zemchina, ruled by the traditional boyar nobles, and the Oprichnina, controlled directly by Ivan. The Oprichnina included some of the Russia's richest and most important lands, which were taken from the boyars and given to Ivan's loyal supporters. These lands became Ivan's personal property. To enforce his control over the Oprichnina, Ivan created the Oprichniki, a special force that only followed him. These men wore black robes, rode black horses, and carried brooms and dog hats to show their job. Well, to remove traitors and find disloyalty. They only answered to the Tsar and had no limits on what they could do. They didn't need approvals. They acted and carried out executions whenever they believed it was necessary. But why did Ivan create the Oprichnina? Well, there were a couple of reasons. The main ones were that he didn't trust the boyars and wanted more power. For a long time, the boyars were in charge of Russian politics. These noble families were very powerful, and Ivan believed they were always working against him. His fears became even stronger after events like Prince Andrei Kurbsky leaving him during the Livonian War. This felt like a betrayal to Ivan. The Oprichnina allowed him to get around these traditional power systems and take full control himself. By setting up a separate government, he could take over Russia's richest and most important lands, including the boyars' power. Beyond politics, Ivan had personal reason too. In his early life, the boyars had treated him badly. The Oprichnina became his way to punish those who once controlled him. It looks like my mom was right about treating everyone fairly. You never know what they might become one day. But let's get back to Oprichniki. They did not follow the normal laws and customs of Muscovy, using cruel and sometimes random methods. They took land and property from the boyars and gave it to Ivan's loyal followers. Entire noble families lost everything in a single night, leaving them without money or power. Acting like a secret police, the Oprichniki spied on nobles, merchants, and even peasants, looking for any sign of disloyalty. Their spying created an atmosphere of fear where no one felt safe anymore. Those accused of being disloyal were tortured and publicly executed in order to scare others. The methods used were often brutal, including impaling, burning, and drowning. The Oprichniki's actions reached their worst in 1570, during the famous tragedy of massacre in Novgorod. Ivan accused the city of secretly trying to join Poland-Lithuania, a claim likely made up to justify his actions. The Oprichniki attacked Novgorod, killing thousands of men, women, and even children. Victims were tied together and thrown into the cold Volkhov River, while entire neighborhoods were burned down. These events made the Oprichniki a symbol of extreme cruelty and fear, with no solid reason behind their actions. But what was life like for ordinary people during those years? For most Russians, life during the Oprichnina was full of fear and uncertainty. The Oprichniki's black robes and dog-headed symbols became signs of terror. People were always afraid of being accused, as even a false claim could lead to arrest and execution. Now imagine you're a peasant in that time. It would have been nearly impossible to protect yourself. Survival depended on avoiding anything that could make you a target. You would need to stay quiet about any topics, cut ties with boyars and wealthy families, move often, and publicly show support for Ivan and his policies. The most important thing was to trust your neighbors, because it was you and your community against the Oprichniki. The Oprichnina had a wide harmful effects on Russia, hurting its economy, social structure, and future leadership. The mass seizure and redistribution of land disrupted farming and trade, while the terror caused by Oprichniki forced many people to leave their homes. With fields left uncultivated, famine spread, making the economic decline worse. Ivan's efforts to weaken the boyars reduced their power, but also caused problems in how the country was governed. The remaining nobles were either loyal but inexperienced or too scared to act on their own, leaving a gap in leadership. The population suffered greatly. The violence of the Oprichniki, along with famine and war, led to many deaths. Entire communities were destroyed, and the once thriving city of Novgorod was wiped out. In addition to the immediate effects, the Oprichnina set an example for strong, autocratic rule in Russia. This way of ruling, based on fear and oppression, would influence leaders like the Romanovs and even Stalin. But here is one of the most important questions to ask. Why didn't people resist? Why didn't they start a revolution against the Tsar? They for sure wanted to, but there were many reasons why it was nearly impossible. The Oprichniki were so cruel that people lived in constant fear. Public executions and massacres were not just punishments but also warning to anyone thinking of going against Ivan. This fear made people stay quiet. The boyars, who could have challenged Ivan, were too busy fighting each other and focused only on their own issues. They were too divided to join together and resist the Tsar. Ivan also said that the Oprichnina was approved by God, which made people even more scared to resist. The Russian Orthodox Church supported Ivan's actions, saying they were needed to remove traitors and sinners. This gave Ivan more power because people were afraid to disobey him and the church. We can see similar things today with leaders like Vladimir Putin, who also uses fear to stay in control. Putin has been accused of using secret agents to threaten, poison, or kill those who speak against him. Cases like Alexei Navalny's poisoning and the mysterious deaths of critics show a pattern of silencing opponents. While the methods have changed, the idea of using fear to keep power is still the same. The Oprichnina ended in 1572 after the Crimean Khanate attacked Moscow. Despite their power, the Oprichniki couldn't defend the capital and failed as a military force. This forced Ivan to disband them and return the Oprichnina lands to the rest of Russia. Even though the Oprichnina ended, the damage it caused lasted for years. This way of ruling through fear influenced how future rulers governed long after Ivan's death. Okay, we can understand the people's fears, but one question really scratches my brain. Why did the Oprichniki, who were the same Russians as the ones they executed, obey the Tsar's commands without hesitation? They followed and obeyed the Tsar without questions for several reasons. First, they felt a deep loyalty to Ivan the Terrible, who controlled their lives and convinced them they were serving a greater purpose in defending the Tsar's power and unifying Russia. Ivan made them believe that their actions were necessary for the country's survival, and in turn, they believed they were protecting the nation from traitors and enemies. Fear also played a huge role. Ivan ruled with absolute power, and the Oprichniki knew that any sign of disobedience or failure to carry out his orders would be severely punished. The constant threat of death or torture kept them obedient and unwilling to question their tasks. They understood that crossing the Tsar or failing in their duties could lead to their own downfall. Additionally, Ivan rewarded the Oprichniki with land, wealth, and power, making their loyalty even more attractive. They gained status and privilege for serving him, and the fear of losing these benefits kept them committed to Ivan's cause. This sense of power and the material rewards they received strengthened their obedience. Lastly, many of the Oprichniki felt a sense of duty and rightness in their role. They believed they were purging the land of treason and sin, making them feel justified in carrying out even the most brutal actions. Their sense of purpose, combined with the rewards and fear, kept them firmly under Ivan's control without ever questioning his orders. Ivan the Terrible secret police changed Russia, creating fear and control. While it helped him gain power, it also caused a lot of pain and chaos. If you found this video interesting, share it with someone who likes history and tell me in the comments what topic you want to learn about next. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'm Natasha and see you tomorrow. By the way, I'm posting every day, so come back tomorrow.